treat parents well, their children's hell will slowly go by, and feed them on your dreams, the one they picked, the one you know by. Don't you ever ask them why, if they told you you would cry, so just look at them and sigh, and know they love you.
And welcome back to Just Blame Joey Live. Like I told you at the beginning of the year, we're going to start a new series of segments. Going to try to expand the audience and expand our contributors to the show quite a bit. Been covering the Senate down here in the swamp in Cheyenne, doing everything I can to stay on top of the legislative proceedings. But there are other things going on out there. One of the things that I hear a lot about is, well, what are we doing for our kids, or school's about the children? And we tend to forget that Chuck Gray and Jailbird Joey are not the youngest guy in Wyoming politics, and you don't become an adult at the age of 30. Nationally, it's somewhere between 18 and 21. Personally, I think as soon as you get a driver's license and start engaging in the most dangerous regular practice you'll engage in every day, you have some adult responsibilities. So we're going to kick off this new series that I'm calling Our Time Is Now, Not Kids, Just Conservative, and we're going to talk to some of the more youthful members of the conservative movement throughout Wyoming. And hey, we may even open it up to some of the liberals, hear what the young people of today are saying, because it's not their future, it's their present. And you might remember a few weeks ago on an episode of Wide Right Turn, Tom Kelly's daughter, Lillian Rose, joined us. And so this one is going to be called Looking at Life Through Lillian Rose Colored Glasses. Welcome back to the show, Lillian Rose.
Hello. I'm Lillian. I'm 19 years old. I've spent the last 4 years studying a lot of civics and government. I helped my dad run his campaign this last summer, and I've just been very involved and into politics for about the last 2-3 years.
Well, it's great to have you back and on your own show. I mean, this segment is all about you. We are going to try to get some other young people that are involved in civics and government and politics to join the Our Time Is Now series. But looking at life through Lillian Rose Colored Glasses, this one's all yours. So we're going to get into a few topics the same way I do my show with your dad. I'm going to drive slightly blind into what you're thinking. And really the point, the focus, the hope here is to not only hear the series of concerns or issues of today through the youth's perspective, but be able to start realizing that you have a voice and you're not just working for your future, you're working for your right now, your present. And sometimes the kids got to teach the parents because we're so worried about things like image and money or winning or legacy that we don't see the real problem. So you shot me a list just a minute ago. And we're going to start with the big one that's kind of on everybody's mind and seems to be a hot topic in our legislature and nationwide. What are you thinking about the concern over immigration these days?
Well, this has become very big. It's hard to know where to start, honestly. So I think we should start with how no matter what, anybody who enters this country without the proper paper ever put in, you are a criminal. I know that people are worried about hardworking families who are just here minding their business, but you willingly crossed the border without doing it the right way, so you're illegal. And what you did was illegal. But right now, that's not even what our national government is focused on. They're focused on the very aggressive, violent people who are out here hurting women and children the most, capitalizing off of fentanyl flowing through the border. They make millions, billions off of human trafficking right now. And when you enter the country illegally, and if you support that, it's more dangerous. You're more likely to be sold into the sex trafficking world or like slave labor. In fact, Robin Marcos, who is in Office of Refugee Resettlement, in the Senate hearing that she was aware that they were selling children under them off to slave labor or sex trafficking. That goes a lot of different directions, like I said.
No, absolutely. And it is a massive concern because not only is there the what happens after these people get here, what kind of danger have they put themselves in? What kind of members, contributing members, productive members of our society can they be if they're already illegal and they can't participate in certain things legally? It just runs into a series of other issues. It really is a further disadvantage to their own benefit by not coming in. If they're coming in, they just want a better life in America. The better life really is, unfortunately, going through the hardship of becoming an American citizen. But there are people here that are absolutely criminal, absolutely came into the country illegal, maybe came back to the country a few times illegally because there is certain types of rackets and markets that they engage in that are unquestionably criminal far beyond crossing the border. But I kind of want to start with maybe your ideas on the rhetoric from the left freaking out that Donald Trump is now president and we're going to round up every person that has a better tan than, let's say, you or me, and we're going to ship them across the border, maybe to Mexico, maybe to Venezuela, maybe places they're not even from. But this is coming from the same group of people that honestly believes they can round up all the guns in the country if they pass a certain law. And realistically, even if you wanted to, whether it's illegal immigrants or guns, I just don't believe you can get them all. So what's your take on not what's happening, not what's being accused, but really the posture of the people that are freaking out? And these are also the people that think every illegal is a Mexican and Mexicans only bus tables, cook food, and cut your grass. Wrong. So what are you thinking on that subject of, okay, the illegality is one thing, but these are the people that believe you can round up all the guns and Trump's going to get all, and you can't do all of anything.
Right. You know, people my age like to get online and post, I think, before they think. And I've had a couple arguments. They've taken some pretty, I would say, insane, possibly racist without even knowing it takes. In one conversation, she told me that our grocery prices are going to go up, infrastructure times are going to go up, we're not going to have people to work these hard labor jobs. And that's super interesting that, again, like you said, they're just here to do these jobs that we don't want to do, but we had all those things before. These corporations are capitalizing off of people who are willing to take low wages. And I was going to talk about another thing you said.
You can't get them all.
I have it on the tip of my tongue because it's another thing that I've seen a lot of. Oh, I totally forgot it. That's okay. Maybe it'll come back to me.
We'll just roll on into something else. That's not a problem. Believe me, when I started with your dad, it was way worse than this in the first 10 minutes. Don't worry about it. So another point that maybe some people are talking about, some people aren't. I don't know if you've ever witnessed a naturalization ceremony. It's my favorite thing to do. Whenever I have a chance and the courthouse is doing it, or I even have to travel a little bit, I love to go watch brand new Americans being born. People who came in the right way, did the hard work, sometimes spent over a decade trying to become an American citizen the proper way. It's one of the few things that I really do get emotional about. If you ever get the chance, definitely go and see it. But I don't assume that you speak for your entire generation or age group. But what are your thoughts and feelings? I know people have talked about it needs to be easier to become an American. And my personal stance is, first of all, the standards should never be lowered. I think we have a good standard for engagement, for education, for participation, for citizenship to become a citizen. And I only could wish that we would hold our high school graduates to the same standard. That would be excellent in my mind. But I do believe that the process and the bureaucracy that engages in the multi-year gambit of becoming an American citizen can be improved and become more efficient. I don't think the standards should go down, but what do you think about what it currently takes and what it should take to become an American citizen legally? Because that seems to be the big crux of the, well, if it wasn't so hard, they wouldn't come across the border illegally.
I agree that it should be not refined, but a lot less time consuming. I don't know what the exact price is, but I've heard it's very expensive, maybe less expensive. And I have tried to take, in all honesty, I did an 8th grade project on this about how hard the naturalization test is and how so many Americans can't pass it. And maybe you're right. The content shouldn't go down. We should hold Americans to the same standard. Personally, it's a little unfair to me that you can just be born here, know nothing. But these people have to work and spend so much time studying all these things. And it's very hard, especially when English is not their first language and they have to learn an entire new language.
Yeah, and I would agree. And I don't think I'm a firm believer in liberty being the hardest thing you do every day. And it needs to be something you exercise, practice, and defend every day. People get mad. Oh, what do you mean it's not supposed to be easy? Well, it's not. It's not supposed to be unduly hard, but it's like going to the gym. Nobody goes to the gym because it's easy. Otherwise, no one would go to the gym. But I do agree that maybe a more pragmatic look at the process. I don't know why it would cost so much if you're already putting the time in, and you have to be here for a while contributing to society. And, legal working immigrants, they pay taxes. They can't vote yet, but they do pay taxes. So I definitely think the system could use some refining as well. But also, to what point do we let how many immigrants from anywhere in? And my other problem with the immigration system, the people that don't have to try and still get in for free, the right way, another version of the right way with these immigration lotteries. Someone says, oh, we're picking you from Jordan, you won the lottery, and oh, you got 47 family members, and all of a sudden we got 48 people who don't have to do anything, come over here, and because the State Department says so, they're really on the taxpayers' dole, and they haven't had to put anything into it. So lots of interesting conversations in there. When it comes to the standard for high school graduates, I don't think you should have to meet the same standard to be an American if you're born here. You should spend your time becoming a functional member of society, just like immigrants do. And before you graduate 12th grade, in order to get that diploma, you need to take and pass that test. Maybe not saying it's your certification for citizenship, but definitely if you want that high school diploma, you should have to pass the same test. I'm not going to balk on that one at all. So we do have the benefit of having you here as the daughter and campaign manager of a brand new freshman legislator in the House of Representatives. Of course, we're talking about our good friend Tom Kelly from Wide Right Turn, who we're missing right now because he's very busy in the legislature. And this weekend, when we were going to put down another episode, like half of the House got sick. And Tom got knocked out for a few days as well with the creeping creds and sniffles. So all our best to you there, Tom. Hope you're getting better soon. Seen you out on the floor, but I still don't know if you're shaking hands with anybody. But since you're so intimately involved, you were with the campaign, you're obviously watching your dad do his new job. Is there anything coming up in the legislature that you've had your eye on, that you've heard about, that you're concerned about, catching your interest?
There are a few things, but we'll start with the House Bill 100, and I'll just read straight from the Wyoming legislature what it is. And it's an act relating to education, allowing school districts and charter schools to adopt policies to employ persons without holding a certificate or permit issued by the Wyoming Professional Teaching Standards Board. And basically, the schools will be able to make their own policies and outlines for who they want to employ. And so, of course, there are going to be people that disagree with this, but I found an article very, very against my dad and his thoughts in it. And I wanted to talk about it because I've read the bill. I read the entire bill, and it doesn't say anything about religion or cutting taxes to the schools. And that's what this entire article seems to perceive the bill as. So I'm not going to name who wrote it, but they said that my dad, Tom Kelly, totally omits the fact that the Freedom Caucus has this agenda to take state funds from Wyoming public schools and education and feed them into only religious schools and religious entities. And that is where I think it starts to fall apart, because that is not the goal of the bill. I have not heard my dad want to promote that whatsoever. He knows that's unconstitutional federally and at the state level. So in here they put that House Bill 100 violates Article 1, Sections 19 and 23 of the Wyoming Constitution. So I took a look at those. And Section 19 states that no money of the state shall ever be given or appropriated to any sectarian or religious society or institution. Okay. That's great. That's not what the bill is about. that's what's frustrating is the bill mentions nothing about taking taxes away from the schools or giving it to religious entities. Section 23 says the Wyoming Constitution guarantees the right of citizens to educational opportunities. It also requires the legislature to support agencies and methods that advance liberal arts and sciences. So that's kind of what their goal is here in the bill, to allow people who are more than qualified, such as my dad, like he has mentioned in his column in the press, that he's taught history, he's been in the public schools, but according to Wyoming, he can't teach history here or be a para here because he doesn't hold this specific certificate. So, in my opinion, House Bill 100 would enrich liberal arts and science in the schools. That's my take on that article.
Well, there are a few things that do concern me about the bill. Simply the fact that we have been hearing a lot of concerns and complaints that we don't have any asymmetrical educators or shop teachers, guys that have experience in engineering, all these other things that are very important, especially to rural Wyoming. We have no plumbers and electricians in the Platte. Well, we have one or two plumbers or electricians in the Platte Valley where I live. And you're going to expect somebody to go off, get a college degree as an engineer, make all this money, and then all of a sudden decide, no, I just want to teach high school shop or welding. It could happen, but it's not likely to. It's not geared towards. In fact, the whole system is set towards go to college for a bunch of years while you extend your irresponsibility, get a piece of paper that's going to cost you $250,000 pretty much for the rest of your life, and then go out and make as much money as you can possibly get your hands on by doing as little as possible. These are not necessarily the kinds of people we need filling these extra positions. A willing, capable, and available person that wants to teach woodshop. I was a carpenter for quite a few years. I've seen high schools that have opened barbering schools. And granted, I'm licensed in the state of Wyoming to do that, but I had to go to school outside of the state of Wyoming to do that because I wanted to learn to do it well. But the thing that really gets me is when I went to the University of Wyoming way back 12, 13 years ago, as a student without a college degree, I actually taught ROTC classes at the college for kids that were getting their college degree. So how is it at the university they could have me instructing classes? Now, granted, it was based on military experience, so they may have had a little jibe there, but I didn't have a special certificate, and I'm teaching at the college to teach kids who are going to go into the military, and some of them are going to end up being teachers with that college degree. So it just blows my mind. I think it's part of a protection racket that this union, the WEA, puts up of you have to be a special part of our special club and you have to be well liked and you have to be this, that, and the other. Otherwise, you're not going to get any of this teaching money. And the real joke is the money's not in teaching. The money's in playing the game, in my opinion, cuddling up to the union long enough for them to support you and recommend you to be an administrator. So you're on easy street once you're a superintendent or a principal, making more than the state superintendent of public instruction, sometimes by multiples. So yeah, I see it as a big problem that we're not taking what we can get, and some of what we can get is fabulous. It's just not gone through the standard structure that the people that currently control that system want. You're not part of the cool kids club. Literally, they make it like junior high cafeteria table crap.
Right. And I've heard that some of the concern is that we're just gonna, schools are just gonna hire these unqualified, out there people who have no idea what they're doing. And if they make their own requirements and you really believe in your schools and that they're gonna do what's best, why would they do that? Why would they hire these people? That's my thought on that.
Well, it also goes the other way. After all the vetting, all the education, all the trust reposed in a person who, you are one of us, you got your certificates, and we hired you. I think recently a principal at the Sheridan County Virtual Academy was arrested for being a sick sex freak. Why? How did they not catch that? Didn't they have enough years with him in the background check and the how you're currently living your life while you're going through our mandatory education system to say, hey, wait a minute. He's constantly in a close physical location to young or maybe not so young girls all the time and slightly. I mean, when I walked into the Department of Education at the university, when I first got there, I wanted to be a high school history teacher. They picked me out right away and they said, no, you will not make it. You'll pass your classes, you'll get your degree, but you will never get a job. So if they could do it to me, why couldn't they pick out that freak?
Right. Not sure. And I don't know if you want to cut this out, but I'm pretty sure he had another case in New Mexico prior, but it was never proven. So,
Oh, I wouldn't doubt it. The only people that are more skilled at shifting around pedophiles in the Catholic Church is the school system. Believe me, I know. And I'm not cutting that out. I'm leaving that in. And if you don't like it, you can just blame Joey out there. I'm not saying teachers are bad. I'm saying the sacred cow aspect of the education system is the same problem we had with the Catholic Church. Nobody wanted to admit it or face the reality that some of these individuals are bad, and all of your special training and certificates and clubs and associations don't keep bad people from getting in or doing bad things. It's my same argument with the county clerks and elections. You can't paint with such a broad brush that when one county clerk does something bad, all of them are bad, or because some of them are good, the ones that are truly criminals need to be protected. We have got to get away from this idol worship, sacred cow, protective posture when it comes to things like teachers, cops, county clerks. People need to be held accountable on their merits, because I'm telling you, nothing pisses off a good cop more than a bad cop. If you think a crooked cop pisses off the public, go talk to a good, hardworking cop about it. They're so much more pissed off. And I'm sure it's the same with teachers. But when you get down to the legislative level, you've seen it in committee, on the floor arguments, people like, no, all teachers are great. Well, if all teachers are great, then why do we have a guy that was running for school board and previously taught, I believe it's up in Park County, who just got convicted to over 30 years in jail for all his child pornography? There are individuals that are problematic. We have got to stop this sacred cow mentality. And I think that that will actually be helped by having people that haven't been raised up in the system being able to teach. Because what happens if you don't put them in the school system? They're teaching one-off TED Talk, weekend workshop classes, whatever, in the kids' extracurricular time. FFA, Boy Scouts. This is where all these people that don't have teaching degrees and you can never get past the super secure gate of entry without the visitor pass at the school, we still support our community. We still coach Little League. We still have our regular youth events. We're just not teachers in the school. So I don't really see what the huge problem is, especially because all of their secret squirrel pieces of paper and training don't stop the sick freaks who want to get in and touch kids. I forget I'm having this conversation with a 19-year-old girl and people like, hey, Joey, you're kind of talking to a kid there. No, you know what? I'm talking to a grown woman who's strong and smart. And she can tell me to stop at any time. And I know that no means no, but that's the whole point of this show. They're not kids. They're just conservatives. We cannot dismiss these people because this is literally their world. It's what I call the living generation between 18 and about 35. Those are the people that should really be the movers and shakers in our world. This is why these opinions are going to matter so much, because when I'm sitting in a retirement home trying to complain, but I can't find my teeth, so you can't understand what I'm saying, it's Lillian Rose who's going to be, her group is going to be in charge based on what they've been thinking the past 20 years. By the time she's in her 40s, she'll be in my position, and her influence on the world will have already taken effect. So remember, our founders were between 18 and 42 years old. That's your group right there. So is there anything else other than the teachers without teaching certificates bill? I know there's a couple out there, 6072 that you brought up that, I don't know, people are getting kind of iffy about. I know they're getting mouthy about it, but nobody has anything other than emotional arguments on this one, including a lot of people on the floor in the House.
Well, I watched the Education Committee pass this, so I believe 60 is on general file and 72 is ready for introduction in the Senate, I'm pretty sure. But I was very, very happy to watch those be passed. Of course, there were some arguments against, and it's just really interesting. I do get a little emotional because it's frustrating that I come from a more historic standpoint of we had women who fought decades and decades and decades to be able to have a fair playing field, their own spaces where they were kept quote unquote safe. And it's weird to watch other women support biological men retake back everything that so many women have worked and spent so much time on. I guess I should say what these bills are.
Sometimes helps, yeah. What are we looking at? One of them's the sports bill, I know.
Yes. House Bill 60 relates to the sports one, student eligibility in sports, keeping biological men out of women's sports. And House Bill 72 is relating to sex-designated restrooms, basically women in women's restrooms, men in men's restrooms.
I believe they're using the term gendered public spaces.
Right.
It's hard for me to identify as a man and say that phrase. It just comes out very special. Well, let me give you an update. Yeah, the student eligibility sports, the women only in women's sports, has been received by the Senate, and the Senate is waiting to get through its last Senate files to deal with the House files. It hasn't started House bills yet. But this afternoon, actually, House Bill 72, protecting women's privacy in public spaces, did pass committee of the whole. Now it's only got third reading left. So the general file work has been done. It is in its current final amendable state. And for third reading, I don't know if there'll be much changes, but why did these two bills jump out at you other than the obvious fact that you're young, so you were just recently in public school, you're a female, and you're Tom Kelly's daughter, so you have an opinion about everything?
Right. Well, they're just very important. They're very important. We're living in this dystopian world where you kind of have to choose between women and men who think they're women. I don't even know what to call them, what's offensive, what's not. And that's why they jump out at me, is that the fact that we even have to make a law that men shouldn't be allowed in women's spaces where they're undressing, or that men who, no matter what testosterone cap you put on, are biologically advanced. I don't know why we have to make it a law that they shouldn't compete against women.
Well, biologically different enough to have an advantage, I believe, is a legitimate argument, which is why the goofy argument that I heard on the floor of, well, why are you going to let girls in boys sports but not boys in girls sports? Well, because it's a level up.
Right.
This is why these are two separate bills. It's not about grabbing some cheek when you're on the football field. If a girl can play football, she can probably handle you for grabbing some cheek. Sexual assault's already illegal, by the way, in case people didn't. I hear these arguments all the time. Well, what about this? Yeah, that's already a crime. Well, what about this? Well, you go to jail and then you go to hell for that. That's already on the books too. I don't know what to tell you. But that's why I thought it was important that they separated these bills, because we don't only need to look at I don't use the terms correctly, but biological sex, I call it biological reality, versus physical capability. I think anybody should choose to be able to perform at the higher level, which comes with that natural male physique, but definitely not the way we've seen it being used. We haven't seen weak, frail men who, just a little bit effeminate, who come in and just be one of the girls. We see the guys that have tried to be guys their whole life and failed at it, 110th in national swimming, because they just want to win. And that's right. It's pathetic. I mean, I get it. They're legitimately not women, but they're also not men. Men don't act like that. But there is a concern and a protect. This is where Title IX came from. And Title IX wasn't saying we need a special carve out for women. They decided in Congress that there needs to be a place where these things can be explored and experienced on equal footing. Kind of like our Senate, purposely undemocratic, purposely unfair. So there is an equal playing field at some level. Now the House is, the big WrestleMania thing, but the Senate is equal footing, and it's produced some great things for this country. I mean, maybe not the WNBA. I don't know. I don't even watch the men's NBA. I don't watch sports. I'm one of those guys when people are like, hey, what about them? I'm like, yeah, hey, go sports team, score another goal unit basket. I don't do any sports. That notwithstanding, Title IX is directly responsible for us having people in our state like Harriet Hagman. She would not have had the opportunities that she had in high school and in college had they all been dominated just by men and there was no place for women in them. And granted, she's not a sports superstar now, but she's a superstar because she had those opportunities. And I think it's important to at least protect the opportunity, because that's, in my mind, what America's really about. What do you think about Title IX in its current stance? You're a woman. You were just recently in school. Do you think it tilts the playing field your way? You got more advantages, or what did you deal with when you were going to school?
I haven't read or looked at Title IX in a few years, but I appreciate it, of course, because this goes back to 8th grade. I think 7th or 8th grade. I was on a swim team, and I guess they did some race where they had a guy compete against, like, he definitely a lot older, a lot bigger, just jumped in the water with us, and of course he beat out all of us girls that were in the race. So I really appreciate it having there. It definitely opens up opportunities for women, because they can't, I don't know if this is rude, but they really can't compete with a lot of men. Like, I'm sure there are those that are really good, and like you said, they could take that step up and they can do that, but there is a difference.
And still just be a mediocre man in reality. It's, I could probably get out there and, okay, maybe not women's karate. I've seen the female karate in the Olympics, but I could definitely go into, why don't I just identify as a 6-year-old, go to one of those kids karate classes, start kicking ass, get my black belt? No one would put up with that. They would look at all the other laws, assault and battery, but, I'm sure there's a law about beating a kid. And God forbid it ever be a kid that lived in my neighborhood, because they'd find some domestic association. Then it'd be attempted murder of a former household member, even though they never lived. They would find it. And I bring that point up specifically because we're talking about the sports participation aspect, but the other bill you brought up was specifically protecting women's spaces. And that is the other side. That's the grab and cheek. If you're, letting girls on the team just so you can get some, of course, again, like I said, sexual assault is already very illegal, but the voyeurism is one of the problems. The deriving sexual satisfaction because you're pretending to be a female sorority member and you're not a female, and you're literally terrorizing these women for your own sexual gratification through voyeurism, was an interesting topic that I had brought up because, well, one of the bills on the slate in the Senate this year is increasing penalties for voyeurism. Senate File 122, Voyeurism Sex Offender Registry Amendment. So now we have a bill on the floor that says if you commit voyeurism or similar crimes and circumstances or attempt or commit conspiracy to attempt, so you only have to think about joining a sorority so you can look at girls in the locker room to be guilty of this crime that's on the floor right now. But we still can't say boys can't go into the girls' locker room. It's insanity. We need to spend a whole session comparing our laws to our other laws because they conflict all over the place. Is it okay for me to get out of a crime of voyeurism if I say, but I identify as a girl, so it's okay. I can be a sick peeping Tom.
Right. And that's what I'm saying. It's very dystopian that we suddenly we can't say certain things. We can't define what a woman is, despite we have to outline very specifically in laws or amendments that we make what defines a woman, because people are always going to skew that right now. And the thing about women's spaces, it's extra frustrating having men who commit crimes like sexual assault, because this is something I was going to say earlier in immigration. Like, these crimes are preventable. What they do is preventable, and that's what makes it frustrating. Yes, it's already illegal, but not that you're allowing it to happen, but you up the chances, and that's frustrating.
It's what we like to try to call mitigation. They love saying it in the legislature. We're not dealing with a real problem. We're making it less likely that this problem will happen. But you brought up an interesting topic that, well, this is our first show, so we haven't talked about it yet. And I think you're in the perfect place, not only with your age and your biological reality as a woman, but what do you think of the What is a Woman Act, and what do you think a woman is?
I think a woman is somebody born with XX chromosomes. You have a uterus at birth, you can birth a child. And I know they can argue intersex and all those other things, but those things really do come down to they don't call it gender, but your gender or your sex. And I think the What is a Woman movement is ridiculous. As society starts to fall apart when you can't define simple terms. And we are seeing that. And again, like I said, we're having to choose between women and men who think they're women. And I think it's deranged. I think it's weird. I don't like seeing other women stand behind it. That is my take.
Well, I'm glad you were comfortable in being open about that. Some people aren't, you know, or maybe you don't know. Well, this is going out to thousands of people as soon as I hit pause on the recording. No, I'm kidding. But in a day or two, a lot of people will hear this, and that shows some courage. I'm not going to belittle your age. I think people your age should be more courageous, and it's a tough subject. But like our friend Billy from the late night infomercials used to say, but wait, there's more. Got a question for you. With your definition of woman and seeing the fact that there's this fight in the Senate and the House, and it has gone on for a couple of years, and we can't get down to just, hey, at least for the purposes of definition of law, what is a woman? They can't define it. What do you think about the fact that in Title VI, which is the Wyoming Criminal Code, under 6-1203, there is an entire section called Battered Woman Syndrome? How do you engage with that or use it as a defense or even recognize it as a legal term without being able to find woman? Go, Lillian.
This is big. I don't even know. That's, again, like you said, a little bit contradicting that we have to make, we can't describe what a woman is, but then we have these things, we can say these things and so on.
Yeah, and the reason I find this so problematic is not because it defines what battered woman syndrome is. It points to professional organization for diagnosing post-traumatic stress and battered women syndrome as laid out in the Diagnostic and Statistical Manual of Mental Disorders 3, so the DSSM. So this other group gets to define legal terms for us, but this isn't even for a criminal charge. This is something that can specifically and almost exclusively be used as a criminal defense. If a person is charged with a crime involving the use of force against another, and the person raises the defense of self-defense, they may introduce expert testimony that the person suffered from battered women's syndrome. So technically, because the DSSM-3 now accepts transgenderism as a regular thing, a man can claim self-defense while beating the crap out of a woman under battered women's syndrome because we don't have that definition. Is that a world you want to live in, Lillian? Is this something your generation won't stand for when you're actually pulling the levers and in charge?
I really hope not. And that's why in this kind of issue, I have to, like you said, be courageous. You can't tiptoe around it. It's ugly. It is going to be ugly. And there are so many people living in this kind of like fantasy world of how they wish things could be and how they want things to be. And it's not like that. And it's going to turn upside down and not go our way. So I hope that is not a world I have to live in.
Well, you're going to start getting exposed to Jailbird Joey's life rules and mottos. And one of them is, hope is a horrible plan. It's a great motivator, but it is a horrible plan. So I hope that we can help you turn your hope into a plan of action, and your hope just be a battery. Let your hope do that. Be the little Energizer bunny that helps you execute a well thought out plan. And as far as being courageous goes, you know, I'll give everybody credit for it when it happens, even those I disagree with. But sometimes the people I disagree with think it's courageous to stand on the floor of the house and scream, "Show me your genitals!" And that was never a suggestion. And I get it. And sometimes people get, but really, House of Representatives, decorum. I mean, if you're in a position where Joey Kareni is pointing out your decorum issues, you got a real problem. So courage has limits as well. Well, we're down to about the last little bit of it. Got through some of our list. So what are you seeing in general out there? Let's see. You just graduated high school. You going to college? What are you doing with yourself, Lillian? Why don't you give the people a little view into what your life's like right now?
Well, right now I am very busy. I do go to college. I'm majoring in criminal justice. I'm working to apply for a lot of scholarships because I'm about to get my associates and transfer. Then I'm going to major in pre-law and political science. Let's see, right now I also work. I'm going to start another job because I like to spend money a lot, so that's hard to keep up with these days. And right now I try to obviously stay in with all the political things happening. I've gone to a precinct meeting for my dad. I like to have those conversations. And I go to the gym. That's pretty much my life right now. That's what I do.
Well, a lot of you out there can identify with that. So if you think your life is that far off from a 19-year-old, you're not wrong. But then again, there are lots of different types of 19-year-olds out there. And we're not going to limit it. I point out the age because it's important for us to remember. These are now, and sometime, especially in my life, people that can end up being on a jury of your peers. So we have to hear each other. We have to know that each other exists. And I think we could only do better. I mean, even the gospel says, the greatest truth from the mouth of babes. I'm trying to help break down a stigma here. Lily, I think you're doing a great job. But yeah, the things you seem to do every day, hopes and visions, working for a better job, a healthy body, a healthy life, keeping busy, doing civic stuff. That's kind of what everybody else does. So keep drawing those connections and commonalities between us. I don't know that I got a whole lot else out there. Unless you want to talk about, we do have a few minutes, anything you see in the legislature, since we're talking about so many election-related bills. Is there anything having to do with elections that came up and caught your attention?
Not specifically that I know of. I know they've been talking about, I don't know about here specifically, at least nationwide, though, no more ballot boxes or mail-in ballots. I'm pretty sure no mail-in ballots is a big thing here, which I agree with and was absolutely necessary. I mean, we just saw in this last election how ballot drop boxes were being set on fire. So I think, yeah, it is best if you can go out and vote in person.
Well, you just committed a cardinal sin. You just proved that you don't listen to my show, because that was the big topic last week. We did the whole Chuck versus the clerks, the ballot box ordeal, but come on, you're busy. You just told us how busy you are, so I totally understand. Yeah, absolutely. I think we're going to win the fight on ballot boxes, but luckily, especially for someone coming into politics and looking to get into law and all these other things, it's not done just because the bill is signed. There's always improvements that we can make. There's always changes we can make. And there's always protections we need to continue to give our good laws, because people will come in, get elected, trying to change it. No, we want them drop boxes back. And they'll try to slip one in on us like 6-8 years from now. So definitely try to stay on top of that. And if not, you need any help, give me a holler. I'm going to try to collect some more young people. If you got any friends out there, I'm looking for 18, maybe even 17 still in high school, all the way up to, as long as you can't be president. I think 35 is going to be my cutoff. I want to hear from you. I want to know if you're willing to sit down for a while, chit chat, maybe do a round table with me, Lillian, get a couple other people. I'm talking to Liberty Poley right now, Mr. Busy Man, Gabe Saint out there. Love to hear from these young voices, because really what I've seen in the Republican Party is a lot of people that are in their 60s or up, who finally have the time to do something and feel guilty about not doing something when it was their time. So we got to make sure, talking to my generation, that we include this generation. It's going to make it easier on us in the future. Believe me, train the person to take over your job the day you get your promotion. That's what you want to do. It helps everything out. Plus, if anything happens to one of us, we got a willing and able replacement in the ranks. So with that, I'm going to start to shut her down, get Lily's final thoughts for the day here on our very first episode of Looking at Life Through Lillian Rose Colored Glasses. Lillian, anything you want to say to the people, any events you want to mention, or any final parting thoughts you have, the floor is yours.
Well, I don't have any events coming up. Final thoughts? I don't know. I just like to stay on top of what's happening in the world. I try to implement federal and state things, see what's going on. It's just, I guess a lot of my thoughts today on what we talked about with immigration and men and women's spaces is these things are frustrating because the crimes that come out of them, they're frustrating because it's preventable. And House Bill 100, it's very interesting that there are so many people against it and so many people taking stances that root, I don't know from where, because the bill doesn't mention a lot of the concerns that I've heard.
Well, that is one of the things bills will lack, and it's tough because you get a few years away from it and everybody starts making up their own memories about how this was argued and what the real intent was. And thankfully, we've got YouTube, but who wants to dig back through 10, 12 years of YouTube videos to find the exact moment? We're going to have to work on that. Talk to LSO, maybe get a findings and intent journal that goes along with the laws. But you're absolutely right. And I got to tell you, I'm just tickled pink that you decided to do this. I know it's a big, scary deal. It's only going to get better. You're going to get stronger, especially if you're going into law school. This is going to help. This is going to help with your debate. This is going to help with your engagement, your ability to cross-examine people, call me out on my bullshit. That's going to be a great training aid for going into law school. So do consider keep coming back. We'd love to have you. the listeners are going to really enjoy this, or enjoy hating that they have to listen to kids all day, but you're still right. But with that, we're going to go ahead and wrap up our very first installment of Our Time Is Now. Not kids, just conservatives. And remember, their time is now. They're not fighting for their future. They're fighting for their present. And sometimes they have to teach their parents well.
Parents well, their children's hell will slowly go by, and feed them on your dreams, the one they picked, the one you know by. Don't you ever ask them why, if they told you you would cry. So just look at them and sigh, and know they love you.
And it's time to wrap it up here. I hope you enjoyed this episode of Just Blame Joey. And if you did, make sure to go to any of your social media accounts, look up Just Blame Joey, like and subscribe, and make sure to add the show to your automatic download feed on any of your podcasting apps. That way you'll be sure to never miss a moment of the cantankerous commentary and political entertainment. And if you didn't enjoy the show, you can always subscribe without liking. That way you can justify all your illegitimate anger and frustration while you just blame Joey.
Just Blame Joey is a production of the 1776 Audio Foundry. All rights reserved.